Hey everyone, welcome to Screen Crush. I'm Ryan Airy. Alright, so 4 episodes in and Watchmen just finds ways to get weirder, right? Now it may seem like nom-flashbacks and egg farmers and baby swamps are just random ideas that came from a Family Guy writer's room, but all of this actually serves the episode's central theme, which I'm going to break down for you right now. So let's talk about all the Easter eggs and theories about what the heck is going on here. The episode opens from the point of view of either an egg hatching or an egg cracking. This is an interesting way to show the thin line between life and death. The opening sequence is set to the Dolly Parton-Kenny Rogers duet, Islands in the Stream. This is a metaphorical song about lovers who are separated from society but find happiness with one another. In this case, the lovers are John and Katie Clark. This farming couple deliberately parallels John and Martha Kent, adopted parents of Clark Kent, aka Superman. They live an idyllic farm life away from society's cares, much like the two islands in the stream. But notice that on this line, no one in between. They make a point of showing the empty chair that's between them, representing the family that they can't have. But like the Kents, they can't have children of their own, and they gain a child the night something from space crashes on their land. There's a few tiny Easter eggs hidden in the house. Katie is reading the book Fog Dancing. This is a reference from the Watchmen comic book. The author of Fog Dancing, Max Shea, also wrote Tales from the Black Freighter, the comic within a comic featured in Watchmen. Shea also unknowingly helped design the giant squid monster and was murdered by Adrian. When Lady Trieu shows up, she places her portfolio on top of the puzzle of Van Gogh's Starry Night. Now this is telling us visually that Trieu is about to take over the life that the Clarks are building together. But also, why Starry Night? The work is from a series depicting the view from outside Van Gogh's asylum window. So maybe the metaphor here is that this couple is isolated from everyone else, watching the world through their own tiny window. Or it could just be a nice puzzle. There's also a parallel here with Adrian in his own little world, peering through a telescope, but I'll get to him in a little bit. When Lady Trieu talks to the Clarks, the clock on the mantle is nearing midnight, a visual motif that appears throughout the Watchmen comic. Cal also holds the egg beater at this near midnight position. Lady Trieu's leverage on the Clarks is the child she created for them. The pen she gives them even kind of looks like a pregnancy test. And she says,
"It's been in your family for generations. Legacy is a big deal."
The theme of legacy and fertility runs all the way through this episode. John carefully cradles the egg in the opening montage, like a newborn baby. When Angela views her family history, she doesn't look at a chart. Instead, she uses a literal seed to grow a holographic tree. And later, Lady Trieu says,
"Much of my success grew from the seed of his inspiration."
Even the human condom looks kind of like a runaway sperm and escapes by slipping into a hole. Am I reading too much into that? Then why do the cops call him
The new boss probably isn't going to give about lube, man.
Fertility is very important for a farmer because fertile land allows the crops to grow. Also, Katie Clark doesn't sell lettuce or tomatoes by the road, she sells eggs, a symbol of fertility. But to be more on the nose, the eggs she's selling were unfertilized. Eggs keep appearing throughout the show, both in Will's breakfast, his egg timer, and Cal's breakfast, and Beyond's dress, and Angela's metaphor in the first episode about race mixing.
Those walls are strong, but they won't stay that way if just even a little bit of yolk gets mixed in with the whites.
And the second episode ends with the Beastie Boys song Eggman. Lady Trieu uses an hourglass, not an egg timer or a clock like you would expect to see on The Watchmen. This reflects how she surrounds herself with traditional Vietnamese objects. Notice that Lady Trieu's hourglass and later her mug are decorated with elephants. In Vietnamese culture, elephants are highly revered. They were always present at royal court and were valuable members of peasant communities. As we see later in the episode, she's trying to keep her Vietnamese heritage close.
Now Vietnam never leaves me.
But elephants also have a darker connection to Vietnam related to the war. Remember, in this reality, the US won the Vietnam War and made the country its 51st state. All through history, elephants have been used in war, but they were also a symbol of exploration. In the 18th and 19th centuries, seeing the elephant was a phrase used by white explorers to mean they had seen new lands.
It's an elephant.
But during the Civil War, the term came to mean experiencing new things at a horrible cost, like battle. Vietnam vets resurrected this phrase, so elephants came to represent the resistance of the Vietnamese people and the hardship of war. So Lady Trieu surrounding herself with elephant totems might indicate that she wants revenge on America for massacres against the Vietnamese. Now I'll get more into her potential motives in a moment. First, More Easter eggs. The title, If You Don't Like My Story, Write Your Own, is from the book Things Fall Apart, a novel about pre-colonial Nigeria, which Cal is reading later in the episode. Then we fade to the same city square with Dr. Manhattan's phone booth, Angela's fake Vietnamese bakery, and the Greenwood Cultural Center. In the Watchmen comic, much of the action in New York took place on the same street corner near Madison Square Garden. This was also ground zero for the deaths of 3 million people. So I think some seriously bad stuff is going to happen in this spot in a few episodes. When Angela returns to destroy the wheelchair, the camera lingers on a bright yellow egg case. Now, yellow has special significance in the Watchmen because it's a sign of both caution and humor. That's why the symbol of the comics is the happy face button splattered with blood. So let's do a quick rundown of all things yellow in this episode. There's the police mask, the traces on Vight's carriage, and the giant drone. Angela's Vietnamese bakery is called Milk and Hanoi. This is a pun on the land of milk and honey, a phrase used by Israelites to describe the Promised Land. Slaves also used to sing songs about the Promised Land of the North, where they would be free. And because reparations have been paid to survivors of the Tulsa Race Massacre, several thousand African Americans have moved to Tulsa, making it a kind of promised land for the black people in this show. Also, the motto of the bakery,
We let bygones be bygones.
isn't just a pun. It's saying, let's put the Vietnam War behind us and move on. That's a sentiment that I suspect Lady Trieu doesn't share. Angela goes to the Cultural Center to discover more about the hidden history of her family. In this same episode, Agent Petey lays bare Laurie's hidden past.
Agent Blake's parents were the comedian and Silk Spectre. They're both in the Minutemen.
Now, it's spoken of very casually, but Laurie discovering her family's hidden history was a major turning point in the Watchmen comic. This is when she destroyed Dr. Manhattan's Crystal Palace and convinced him to help humanity. Because, as he says, individual humans are as rare as a thermodynamic miracle like lead turning into gold. This must have been on her mind because after her past is revealed, Laurie says,
We're talking about a thermodynamic miracle.
and then she mentions that Dr. Manhattan studied quarks, which he was doing in the first issue of the comic. The family tree room says that Will didn't exist after the fire. He may as well have been on a new planet after his family died. Again, this draws a parallel with Superman. I also love the overlay of Will's face over Angela's. The show frequently uses fades to show connections between different characters. Angela visits Looking Glass in his atomic bomb shelter, which also looks like the chamber where Dr. Manhattan gained his powers, and where Veidt makes his servants later on. He takes pictures of the squids before they dissolve, showing that the general public fully believed the lie of the alien squid attack from Watchmen issue 12. He also mentions that Judd's grandfather was a lawman and a Klan member. This is confirmed by a letter in the PDpedia on HBO's website from Senator Joe Keene to Judd's grandpa. Laurie reveals that Will was a police officer in New York in the 1940s and 50s, which basically confirms that he's the hero hood of justice, right? And by the way, I love how much of a nerd Petey is about his superhero entertainment.
Minutemen like the TV show?
That show is garbage. It's the
I would love to hear his thoughts on Batman vs. Superman.
Save Martha!
It's
The song they listen to on the radio is You're My Thrill by Billie Holiday. This is the same song that Night Owl played while he and Laurie rescued people from a burning apartment building. Now, the hidden message here is that the two of them were sexually aroused by being superheroes. They also have a conversation about being a vigilante where Laurie basically reduces the superhero genre to a few tidy tropes.
People who wear masks are driven by trauma. They're obsessed with justice because of some injustice they suffered, usually when they were kids.
Beyond talks about the wonders of the ancient world, including the Lighthouse of Alexandria, which was named after Alexander the Great, Adrian Veidt's idol. The Millennium Clock is beside a vivarium that contains a pocket Vietnam. This is similar to Karnak, Veidt's headquarters in Antarctica. Both of these domes are also filled with butterflies. And then there's a statue of Adrian Veidt. Now notice that Lady Trieu says,
Because he is old.
this implies that she knows he's alive somewhere, not presumed dead like the fake news would have you believe. So let's talk about the Veidt interlude, my most favorite part of every Watchmen episode. We get a lot of reveals this week.
I will escape this godforsaken place.
He pulls fetuses from lobster cages in a swamp. Now he throws some of them back, again leaning into the episode's theme of fertility. Some fetuses are better than others. The centrifuge, where he grows them to maturity, looks like the intrinsic field generator that gave Dr. Manhattan his powers, and that we see duplicated in Veidt's stage production of that incident. The song he listens to is Do Your Thing by Leroy Sibbles, further showing Veidt's love for reggae after he listened to Israelite in the last episode. Now after last week, I theorized that the prison was built by Veidt himself.
I was wrong.
In this episode, he tells the clones,
For while I may be your master, I am most definitely not your maker.
meaning he definitely didn't create this place and he wants to escape. He's trying to build a containment suit and catapults the clones off somewhere that is freezing them. I also presume he murdered these clones so he would have enough raw material for these experiments. So where is he? Like a lot of you theorized, he's probably in space. At first I thought he could be Dr. Manhattan's prisoner on Mars, hence why his castle looks so much like Manhattan's. But this episode strongly hints that he's on the moon, judging by this fade. After all, Dr. Manhattan said he wanted to create life at the end of Watchmen, and this swamp definitely qualifies as a weird way to create life. But now, I'm thinking he's being kept there by Lady Trieu. What if Trieu discovered the secret of the squid monster attack and threatened to go public unless he sold his company to her and agreed to disappear? To repay him, she built him a home on the moon. There's even a small precedence for this in the comic. A newspaper headline announcing the government is going to build missile silos on the moon. So what if Veidt now lives inside one of these missile silos? After all, the silos are a relic of the Cold War, just like he is. Also, apparently Lady Trieu is an expert at growing babies, so this swamp could have been created by her. And if Trieu has her own space program and means to genetically engineer life, that would also explain how the baby squids are raining down on Earth. So Veidt's escape plan would be to escape the gravity of his moon silo and then enter one of Trieu's bases on the moon, presumably to hijack a shuttle and take it to Earth. His plan probably involves a horseshoe, or at least an object shaped like a horseshoe, which is why the clones keep trying to give him a horseshoe.
I don't need it yet.
So what do you think? Does this hold water? Let me know down in the comments. Now let's talk about the episode's theme of time and legacy.
Tick-tock. Tick-tock.
Time is a cornerstone of Watchmen symbolism, as I mentioned earlier. For instance, Veidt's centrifuge spins like a clock to accelerate time. Trieu's headquarters is the Millennium Clock. Now we're told it tells time, but also that
What I'm building down the road is much more than a big clock.
Now think how important time is. It's always running out. It's always working against us. Time is finite, but we also use time to regulate our lives. The only weapon we have against time is our legacy, which outlives us. Trieu begins the episode by saying,
Legacy isn't in land, it's in blood. Passed to us from our ancestors and by us to our children.
memory of the past, and especially past trauma, plays a big part of this show. After all, the series begins with the Tulsa Race Massacre, and Angela is trying to piece together how her family connects to that event. She and Will are both orphans, and losing their families has disconnected them from their pasts. Trieu says that in Vietnam, they want to remember the past.
In my culture, our elders are revered.
But in America, we want to forget and focus on new things.
Well, yeah, but this is America, sweetheart, and it looks like
So Angela carelessly burning this relic of her past shows how in America, we often sweep racial violence under the rug, instead of learning from it. For instance, for decades, the Tulsa Race Massacre was ignored by historians and was labeled a race riot. The Vietnamese desire to remember the past is also prevalent by the memory drugs that Trieu gives her daughter. She relives her ancestors' trauma of the Vietnam War.
I was in a village. Men came and burned it.
So whatever disaster that Will and Trieu have planned, it seems focused on reminding America of the massacres they've committed, like an undergrad who just read the People's History of the United States for the first time. Now I'm sure their plan has something to do with the blue object that crashed on the Clark's land. All we really know about this is that Trieu knew the exact moment that it would crash. Now it could be some form of Dr. Manhattan because it's blue, or maybe it's a genuine alien, or maybe it's an escaped Adrian Veidt and all of his interludes have taken place in the past. Now I have one last theory. Is Cal Dr. Manhattan? Laurie compares him to her ex.
he's no cow.
He's adamant that Dr. Manhattan can't look like a person.
He also says that Dr. Manhattan can pretend to be human.
No, he can't.
He's also scholarly, he hates lying, and is ripped. Now it would also explain why the Manhattan shade of blue keeps popping up around the house, like on this basketball rim or in Topher's bedroom. That's all my theories, guys. Sorry this video is so late, it's been a really busy week. If you have any more theories or Easter eggs, let me know down in the comments below. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.